Hey there, and here we are. We're live, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Albob. I am your griot, Sensei Albob, and I just want to give you heads up. Don't believe anything I say. Check it out for yourself. I am a griot, and what is that? It is a person who tells a story that you, the listener, the adept, it's like when you get notified that on my little bell. These stories are like the little bells. It notifies you that there's something going on, you know. And you know, before I go live, I kind of prepare myself and think about what I'm going to talk about. And driving here, I had to drive about 35 miles to come here. I had a few other little errands to do. That's what I got to do. I got to do a lot of things, not just one thing. Because I'm, a budget. Everyone needs to live on a budget. I do. Anyway, hello, Hayden. Well, my email is thedudeawake42 at gmail. Thedudeawake42 at gmail. Okay. So there you can find me. And if you live in America, give me your phone number. I'll give you a buzz. We can talk. Anyway, so I'd love to hear from anybody, especially feedback about what I'm talking about. And the live chats, we've had some issues with trolls. And I said, these guys are just our simulators, because it'll give us an ability to train to be nice to the worst of worst. But driving here, I heard Marvin Gaye. This guy played Marvin Gaye, and it came on, and they played "Mercy, Mercy Me." And Marvin Gaye was one of my most favorite albums. It was done in 1971. In 1971, I was living in Worcester, Massachusetts, being a DJ at WAAF, and it had been a Bible radio station. That guy died. He left it to his, wigged out son, who was long hair hippie boy, and the preacher had a church and a Dunkin' Donuts, which was the only Dunkin' Donuts in Miles. And Worcester has a college in it, pretty, Ivy League college. Anyway, so that was it. That was like the closest thing to Starbucks in 1971 was Dunkin' Donuts, and it had, addictive glazed donuts. So I met up with him, and I was kind of stuck there. I had been living in Boston and hanging out at UMass. I had a girlfriend up there in UMass and Amherst and Amherst College, and I was trying to stay out of the way of my draft board, not by breaking any rules, but just by ready to go. I don't know, it was just here. So so I was there, and I had a friend of mine called Emery Levins, right? And if you go look him up, he is really well known in the sustainable world. He kind of invented it. He didn't, because sustainability was invented by the Greeks, and then the Romans, and then this guy and that guy. So it's been like this, interesting thing between fields. And so that song, Mercy, Mercy Me, Mercy, Mercy Me, and he talks about, what happened to the blue skies. It's polluted with the water, mercury in the fish, And the opening song of, what's going on is what's going on. And so that song was written in 71. And so Emery had come from wherever he was to MIT to teach, lecture, and he wanted to start a movement. And that's how I kind of, and that's where Earth Day Earth Day started with lots of different people. It was one of those kind of things that just exploded, And it happened all over the place at the same time. And no one person, or a lot of people. There's another guy named Sam Lovejoy. Go look him up on Google. Um, he started the anti-nuclear movement he was, and I knew him from my time in Vermont. And I had a number of times in Vermont. And he was the guy. They were going to build the Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant. And to get a license, you got to do all kinds of stuff. And one of the things you have to set up before you break ground, you got to set up a little weather station to say which way the wind's going to blow. They take all these measurements over time of day. So if there was ever an accident, they'd have a general idea of what was going to happen. Anyway, so they put up a big tower with all kinds of little instruments on it and blinking lights. And he first just got pissed off because he lived nearby this thing. This bright red light blinked at night and it came right through his window. And he's like, what the? He asked, what the heck is that thing? And they said, oh, they're going to build a nuclear power plant there. And he said, what? And so, he did his homework on it and he realized no one was going to stop it. So he was. So what did he do? He got himself a real good pair of bolt cutters and he went out there and he cut the suspension cables of this tower. Was like 200 feet up in the air, and he bing, 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 the thing falls down. Made such a racket, and he the cop showed up and he was waiting for him. He was smoking a cigarette. He had says, I did this, take me away. And they did, and he wanted to go to court, and he had done all his homework. And how I ran into him was I was working for Ralph Nader in New York for NYPIRG, New York Public Interest Research Group, and I was working with a lawyer guy, Gene Stillop, and he was a great lawyer. He could have been making millions, but no, he was there trying to save the environment because he lived in that place in Ohio where the river caught fire, and his father died of cancer from working a plant. And they said it wasn't the plant's fault. And so anyway, Gene was sent up there to put together a legal counsel for Sam. And Sam said, I was going to be a lawyer. I studied this stuff. I'm going to represent myself. But yes, I want you as my second chair so I don't say anything stupid or make a mistake. Keep an eye on me. So, that's how I got up there in that neck of the woods. And then I met this guy who his dad died and got a radio station. So I said, the guy goes, I need some DJs. I said, hey, I'd love to do it. Spin records, talk. And I did exactly what I'm doing here there, 1971. And 70 and 71. And so, and that album came out. I just played Marvin Gaye and Jimmy Cliff, Marvin Gaye. Who else did I play? Pretty much all of Motown, and a lot of gospel music that had Hammond B2 organs. I lived in Newark, New Jersey, right on that line between the Portuguese section of town and the black side of town. And these black ladies had a church, and they also had a restaurant. And I moved to Newark because the rents I had a beautiful apartment for $35, cheaper than anything I could get rent control in New York. And it was pristine, didn't have cockroaches or anything. And they had this thing called the tubes, the PATH train. That would go straight from Newark, straight to, the West Village, Penn Station, and there was a place, and World Trade Center, right? And in the subway at that time was like 35 cents. The PATH train was still a dime. So it was a perfect thing. So I met these old ladies and I fixed it. That's where I kind of really became a Hammond B210 maestro. And there was a speaker cabinet called the Leslie that I was good at fixing. So I hung out. So I learned to, do you ever see that movie, Blues Brothers? And they go and they find the hardest man working rock and roll being a minister, and he comes in and he does a triple somersault and lands. And that was the kind of church that these ladies ran. And so that's what I experienced in like a 2.5 year period. And that was a real throw of the dice of stream of consciousness storytelling. that I offer you, right? Hayden, Mr. Fish, Miss Fish, I love you all. And so, Double B, uh, yeah, the greatest, you can't get any better instrument than that. Yeah, yeah. I've been on the radio a couple of times, but basically what happens is one of my employers once said, you know, Al, we love you, but if there were more than one of you, we'd have to kill you because you're an acquired taste. And sometimes it goes sour in people's mouths. And that segues into there are a number of people out there who are not just our little troll friends. Hey there, D. But there are people who really say the meanest things to me um, on my Gmail and comment on other people's channels about, oh, don't go do that guy Al Bob. He's terrible. Oh, he's a liar. He's and it's like really, and that person used to be in love, and that's another that happens to me. People see me as some kind of savior, and when I don't really do, I'm not in the savior business. Um, you know, they get upset with me. And nothing's worse than, they say, the worst thing is the ire of a jilted lover. But no, it's a jilted person who sees you as a savior. And I'm not a savior. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Don't believe anything I say. These are just stories, and I'm not a savior. The only savior there is you. What's the channel about? I don't put any of that about stuff, over there. What's it about? It's about you, Robinson. It's about, so I'm, basically a homeless guy who's had some real experience. I'm an itinerant scholar. I'm not a scholastic. I just had 3 really nice conversations with friends of mine who I were in universities that I taught at, and they're still there. They all got tenure, and I never did because I didn't want it. And one university offered me tenure, not only that, but to be the head of their department of anthropology. And I said, no, I quit. What? You're quitting? I said, yeah, you can't quit. You don't even work for us. I said, yeah, well, I'm kind of done. I've just been hanging out here. But I've already finished my project about 4 months ago, and I'm just, eating at the cafeteria and having a good time. But you want me to do this? You want me to stop wearing my pajamas? I can't wear my bunny slippers anymore. So Robinson, what I am is a character, out of Dickens. I'm like Mrs. Haberstand, without the money. I'm like Jim in Huck Finn. I'm like Ishmael in Moby Dick. So this is a stream of consciousness, a live chat where I just amble on. We've just been talking here for 13 minutes, and I just ambled a whole bunch. Have you been homeless? Well, see, that's the real issue. It's I grew up. So I was the youngest of 6, and my mom, my parents shouldn't have had kids, but they were Catholic, so they did. And before my father made a transition from the military into private business, and there was about a 4 or 5 year period where he had to go from being at the highest end in that military thing to going down here and then private business. So, but he's, a triple Virgo, so no one was going to stop him. And my mom was a triple Capricorn, so they were an indomitable thing. But it was like the Titans, smashing together. And then they'd have sex and have us. So when I was born, they had no room for me. So I was born in the winter, and they put a radiator out on the porch and stuck me in a dresser drawer outside the house. The dog got to sleep inside. If you go to my xratted.blogspot.com, I have a bunch of novels, and there's stories about that. And so When I was 4 or 5 months old, or I have no idea, but when I was a baby, my mom, she didn't breastfeed or anything, and they had this new thing called formula. And it was like lumpy crap. And, the box had more nutrition than the formula. My grandma said, forget it. And my grandma had a neighbor who was black and who was really, that woman's mother was one of my grandma's better friends. And when that lady died, she said, I'll watch after your daughter. So she grew up, she kind of had a business. She cleaned people's houses and she did pretty good, very good at what she did. And she also cooked for people and did that. And she had a bunch of kids herself. And so she had a baby about the time I was. So she had these two mallows. And so she started breastfeeding. She go, ugh, what is this stuff? And just stuck me on one of her tits, and the other girl was on the other, and it was you're dueling. And so my mom saw that that's fine, no problem. So but she used to call this woman girl, and because that's what society called black people. If you were white, of the gentry culture, and that's what my mom thought of herself as. And but at the time, and she was living in the same neighborhood as this black woman, you live in the same kind of cracker house. So, but anyway, not to stay there too long. So my grandma said, "Fine, I'm going to take him. You can't, and I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it." So I was brought up by my grandma, you know, from then until I was 7, and then by that time my dad started to hit it big time. So they moved to a bigger house, a nice part of town, and I went back to them. But I always kind of went, because it was only 15, 20 blocks to walk. So at 7, I used to walk. Mom, I'm going to grandma's. Okay. And I'd walk. Today, the cops would pick me up and arrest my mother for letting me do that. But, I would, and it wasn't, where their house was a nice part of town, but in that 20 block walk. But I had grown up in that neighborhood. I knew everybody, Mrs. Black, Mrs. Green, Mrs. Johnson, and the grandmas ruled, so it was safer than the nicer part of town. So anyway, that's how I grew up, and so I've always been homeless. I've always been, so my grandma had 28 rules. And, one was to live like a millionaire, but not be one. Well, look at me. I'm having breakfast in the fanciest place in this part of the state. And, but they have really amazing berries and fresh whipped cream for $4. I get a big bowl of berries and as much whipped cream as I want for $4. So I come here. They have really nice tea and honey, and that's $1. I mean, if I wanted coffee, they give me all the coffee I wanted for like $2, which is actually, and that's the interesting things. Things in really fancy places in a lot of ways are cheaper than they are. Like back in the deep green where I am, where it's just farmer and poor people, the cup of coffee in that, which is like dishwater, is $3 because nobody drinks coffee there. Right? They drink Mountain Dew. So I've always been a homeless person, right? But I've lived like a millionaire. So where I live right now is beautiful. If you go look at a couple of shows down from here, I can't, where I'm at, there's no phone, no internet, no nothing. But I put a 1-minute little thing on my phone and then download it here onto my channel. So you get to see what it looks like, right? So I have a beautiful living room with furniture that I grew off the street, and tarps, and it's been beautiful. But since May, it's only rained once. It rained once, and in that one time it rained, it dropped 4 inches of rain in an hour, and then it was sunny, and that was like end of May. It's been sunny every day, right? So we might get some rain today, this afternoon. Who knows? But when it rained, it was amazing because I was sitting in the living room with a rug, had a nice rug, but I have it drained. So none of the water came through the living room, and it was coming down on the tarps. And I had it hung just right, so it just shot right. It didn't get filled up and whooshed me. But I just sat there and watched it. And then a friend drove up out of nowhere, and I just happened to have a beach umbrella that was like 6 foot, and I kind of went and got it, opened it up, and went out and got him out of the car, and it was like the water was rushing down, and the way I've got it drained, waterfalls were coming through the forest, and trees were being washed down, but my little path, yeah, it was getting rain on it this way, but it went off the side, and there were no puddles. And I had this gigantic umbrella, and I walked them up to the tarps, sat them down, made him a little pot of tea that was on my little Bunsen burner camp stove, and we had a beautiful afternoon listening to it rain. And he said, "This is unbelievable." So it's however you want to look at being homeless, right? Uh, oh, buddy, and you probably won't show up because Yo-Yo is, again, our simulator. The sweeter we are to him, the nicer we are to him. He won't be here. And what's troubling is that Yo-Yo represents this character trait. We live in a society that's schizophrenic. We live in a sociopathic society. And right now, and I got paid many, many years to be a scholar, to look at things, not to be an expert on X, Y, or Z, but to look at the big picture, look at the trends, see how things were going. And I've been talking about, when I started this off, it was a 40 days and 40 nights, right? And then I said, ooh, there's this window of opportunity, 18 months, right? And now it's down to 15 months. And, in 2000, the world was supposed to end, all the computers were going to crash. No, I knew that was a joke. It was just a way to make some money. Then 2012, end of the long calendar. Well, that wasn't the end of times. It was just the end of a calendar. It marked the crossover where we're going from Pisces to Aquarius. And those are times of birth. And anybody who has experienced birth, I used to be a doula for the old crone. And, I watched a lot of births. And so that's why I learned how to make soup. My major thing was to make a big pot of soup and cornbread and, wash, towels and sheets and clean everything before the day. And then the day would come and I would just be there to keep everybody comfortable over there and give them soup and cornbread. And I would bring fresh cream. And birth can either be easy or hard. And we have 15 months to decide whether it's going to be easy or hard. And Yo-Yo represents birth being hard, right? And, Donald Trump, Brexit, Brazil, Philippines, Mexico, France, Italy, these are all they all have yo-yos in their governments making things worse, and they're doing it on purpose, because chaos is the best thing you can have at these crossovers to make sure your empire will stay in place, right? Because there's a great opportunity for a new way of life. The last time they had this, Jesus Christ was on the scene, saying, he wasn't, saying, the meek shall, he said the meek shall inherit the earth, meaning not the yo-yos, but the cadre, right? And you won't inherit it. You will be, an adept in service to love's co-creation. And that's what we're doing here, right? We are developing a cadre of you adepts. What's an adept? But somebody who feels in their heart things are changing and they want to, have a good feeling in the heart and not a horrible feeling, right? And so I look at a lot of things, that's what, for the last 40 years I've paid to do that. And I spent a good 30 years in universities and I didn't matriculate, I was a scholar, and you don't matriculate to become a scholar. You matriculate to be a scholastic, right? And that's why universities today have a real problem because everyone's trying to guard their paycheck instead of, having the academy, and that's what, the chorus is here, the guys you folks on the live chat you're part of the academy. You are the academy. So Robinson, are you getting to see what it is? Yes. Um, and why people pick on people is because it represents a feeling of guilt they have. So somebody who has a lot of stuff to lose, they see a guy or a gal on the side of the street that has nothing to lose. Ooh, they're jealous of that. So they have to find everything they can, bring about to take that anxiety. Oh, it's making me anxious. Oh, how am I going to pay my bills? Oh, no one loves me. Oh, I've been doing this for 30 years and I don't get any recognition. Oh, no. It's every second of every day is how you live, you know? And so, I always go talk to police. I mean, I used to teach police how to meditate. A couple of police departments that in Asheville and a few other interesting towns. And I always lived in these interesting towns before they became interesting towns. Asheville was an amazing place when I was there between 91 and 99 because it hadn't become a hipster place. Now, there were very cool people. All the, Black Mountain School was there. There were Warren Wilson. There was a bunch of, Biltmore House, the Grove Park Inn. And then there were all these artists. When I went in there to work for the state to do a database on the Biltmore House before they renovated and turned it into the big whoop-de-doo tourist trap. And, what happened to Asheville, it was the Paris of the South up until the Great Depression. And they spent a lot of money to put in, roads and tunnels and city county plaza and water and sewers. And then the Depression came. They spent all this gas they didn't have, couldn't pay the bill. So Asheville did not finish paying its Depression debt until 1996. So nobody would lend them any money. So they didn't tear down all the nice houses and build crap. They didn't build, shopping malls. They didn't do any of that stuff. They didn't widen the roads. And it wasn't until 96 and so I left in 99 because Asheville was also the center of patent medicine. There was a guy, UNCA, he had a school for alternative healing there from the 1880s till 1920 something. And when he died, he left it to the city with the express contractual thing that you keep the school open. And there was a road that came from downtown, it was Broadway, that went right to that school. And he owned all the property. And he had these little bungalows where people who were studying herbs lived in little bungalows. So there was a stream that went right along Broadway that went down to the French Broad. And he had planted all these medicinal herbs, and the people were there, and they would study the herbs, and they would live amongst them, and they were right in town. It was the coolest thing. And in the contract, don't mess with this. He had a beautiful house up there above Grove Park, and it had the most amazing garden. And he gave that to the city too. So what happens? 96 comes, and all the developers come in, and they want to turn Broadway into a 4-lane highway out to 26 from downtown. And but there's and these little bungalows were where I got people to squat in them. And there was a old commercial building that sold patent medicines that was like falling into this stream, and it was the bottom half was like funk growing like you couldn't believe. And we turned it into the Pink House, which was our party house. And certain people bought some of those things. I noticed what was coming down the line, so we tried to save that. They just, we went with signs and we put up a thing. And what happened was, there was this woman who was an environmental scientist at UNCA, and she took it upon herself to be the leader. Well, they burnt her out to a crisp. And then she had a nervous breakdown. And then when that happened, because everything was on her back, the whole thing kind of broke up. And then they waited for everyone not to be looking, and they just went in one day and just bulldozed all those things down, took it all away. And that was called urban renewal. We can thank Robert Moses. Go Google Robert Moses, right? So when that happened, I left Asheville. And then it became this hipster monster that it is now. I haven't been back for, since, it's only 200 miles from me, but I got a lot of friends, and I go, talk to them. Like one of the people, I talked to about 5 people before I went on this, and start talking about, to get my juices flowing to talk to you guys. So that was one police department who was totally lost. They didn't have a clue. The gangs had moved in before the hipsters did. And I remember going to the police chief, and I was looking out the back window of his office and out on this, I forgot the name of, but it was this like little, it was the last refuge of the black cultural community. And Asheville it was a gem of the, there was this thing, what's it called? It came from the Renaissance of Harlem, and it was a musical, cultural path that went down the south through Florida and then up through along Mississippi up to Chicago. I keep thinking Collard Greens, but it was this, and all these musicians and artists would travel on it. And a person, if you want to read about it, go read Sarah. Zora Thurston. She was the queen of the Harlem Renaissance, and she came from this place in Florida called Port St. Lucie, and she was an amazing painter and an amazing writer, and she hung out with the guys who started modern, because she was in Harlem, and Columbia University was there, and there was this guy who ran away from the Nazis and started, studying changing anthropology. Anthropology was a science that was started by white men to prove that white men were sent here by God to rule the world, and was an outgrowth of, who's that king who was an English guy that forced, he was so bad they had the Magna Carta. King John, right? The plague, all the presidents come from his bloodline. Every single one. You got to realize, guys, that everything, it's a movie. It's time for you to rewrite the script, So when I was in Asheville, they had this, Opie character who was the, head of police of the city forever. He was corrupt as ever. And he was like 900 pounds. And whenever he lied, he would fart up a storm, right? And I would ask him questions at city council meetings, and I knew the answer. You should never ask the question of an official unless you know the answer. And then, and I'd have all the, I'd have my little notebook with me. And my best of friends, there was a environmental newspaper called the Green Line before it became the Mountain Express. And there was this woman, I forget her name, but she was an amazing investigative reporter. So every time they had a city council meeting once a month, he would be there and give the report. And I would have a whole bunch of questions that we'd already researched. I'd know the answers. And I'd ask him, and he would lie, and he'd start farting. I mean, like farting you couldn't believe. And I'd ask him more questions, and he would get so upset, he would shit his pants. And it would roll down his legs. He'd be up on this rostrum of all the people in the city council, and he would start shitting in his pants and would roll down his leg and roll down the steps into the audience. That's how much he lied. And that's things I do. I know how to do those kind of things, make power shit in their pants. So, but I got rid of him, and they actually went out and got a good police chief who had been, educated and had a PhD in criminology, and he was one of the first people to publish works on community policing, and he had a police force that were like Opie, right? So as soon as he got a job, I knocked on his door and said, "Hi there, I'm Al, and I'm over at the university. Ask the mayor who I am, ask this person who I am, ask this person who I am. And then I'd love to help you out to get the most out of your position here, because you won't be more than 3 years, maybe 6 at the utmost. But you'll need somebody to vent to and someone you can trust, and I'm your guy." So I walked away, Gave him my card with my phone number, and he goes, "There's so many things on this." I said, "Yeah, it's my curriculum vitae in a business card. Why have all the stuff you staple together here? It's just look at it." So anyway, he went and talked to all those people, and they said, "Oh yeah, Al, he's amazing, you know." And he said, "Oh yeah, he'd be good for you." Yeah, yeah. But he can get carried away, so you just gotta, Anyway, so we had a really good relationship. But one day, I could just, if he wasn't busy, I could just stroll into his office, just like I could stroll in the mayor's office, just like I could stroll into the three major bankers. Because I always had ideas of how to do what they wanted to do without them going to jail. And I don't care who's running it. All I want is that no innocents get hurt, you know? Yep. Not supposed to believe anything. Check it out. Is all I got to say. Check it out. And there was, when I was in Virginia, I hang out in libraries. And there was a beautiful library there, and it was brand new. And it was built where the rich people. So it was only rich people had. It had a restaurant in the library, and you could eat in any place in the library as long as you didn't make a mess. Then they wouldn't let you eat there. But it was unbelievable, and they had quiet rooms if you wanted, but the rest you could have a nice conversation, right? So I got to know the librarian who ran the place really well, and I taught her how to meditate and how to go into state. And she saw her librarian, her animal totem, her guardian. Anyway, she set up this little place with the comfiest seats around a fireplace. Where I could sit, and other people could come and we could have conversation. It was called the conversation circle, and it would go through different streams of different types, but there was usually at a certain, like 10 to about 1 in the afternoon. And I had to be there because I was really sick and I had no heat. The utility guys had turned off the electricity. So I would come down, have breakfast, hang out. People would buy me breakfast and and I was trying to mend myself back from death. Right now, I could have let them cut my legs open. I could have let them cut open my chest, and you have a pulmonary this and that. I said, no. I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to do some exercise. I'm going to lose all this weight. Oh, it's going to be awful painful. I'm going to meditate. Anyway, so I would go down there, and some people would say that's being selfish. That's being you're like being what do I call those things? A parasite. And that's sad. There are a few people who go on other people's channels and talk about me being a parasite. Well, I might be a parasite. And that's a pretty good thing because you wouldn't be alive today if you didn't have billions of little parasites in your colon eating up all the crap of your body. Whenever you get a gut, you should always go by your gut. Well, that's because there's about 1 billion little creatures in your gut, and they're very susceptible. I was talking about how the anxiety of trauma is in your myelin sheath. Well, they are connected to that, so that's why you get gut feelings. So I haven't been keeping up with what you guys are saying. Yes, loose stool. No, this was running river, mud flats. There's a part of me. My second wife was like, she was this beautiful little Italian gem of a fashion designer, right? Her father was, a diamond cutter. I mean, she came from real amazing, creative, Einstein creativity. And she took no guff. Both her parents died when she was 16. She was on the street, and within 8 years, she had a multi-million-dollar fashion business, right? But nobody, not because anybody gave it to her or her parents paid her bills. No, she was living on the street. The only clothes she had was her Catholic high school uniform. She decided she had walked by the Hells Angels stores on 6th Street in the Lower East Side. She went in and said, "Hey, I want a job." And she's like, this unbelievably hot woman in a Catholic girl's uniform. And they said, yeah. And they thought they could jump on it. And now she knocked them around and took over. And she they had this business where they made leather goods for the motorcycle guys, and so she learned how to sew leather goods, and how to make a pattern, how to do all that. 8 years, she had a multi-million-dollar um, fashion business. And that's and about 10 years after that, that's when I met her, and the rest is history. But she would make the clothes for me because she didn't like. You can't look like that and be next to me, so she would make my clothes for me, right? And I could never wear them unless I was with her, right? And she would go and get these, those real thin plastic tarps for painting that are like, 12 feet by 12 feet. And she would keep, they would fold up into a little thing. Whenever we went out to dinner to a fancy place and I'd eat all, um, we'd sit down, we'd order, we'd have drinks, and then she'd excuse herself. But before she did, she would get up and she would open up one of these drop cloths and tie it around my neck. So everything from here down was protected. I mean, all her fashion amazingness would not, because I can't help myself. I eat something, half of it goes right there. And people would look at us and go, how are these two together? Because we were at such opposite ends of the spectrum that we came around and ended up spooning, you know. And the things that would make her most nuts about me within a certain period of time, those were the things that she loved most about me because I did my best to tone that down to keep her comfortable. And I would do all these other things that she loved about me, um, because I loved her so much. And that's what Love's Co-Creation is all about, right? It's not about lust. It's not about owning people. The only thing that's important for me is my wife, my ex-wife. So why'd you get divorced? Oh, well, I don't want to talk about it. And my children. When's the last time I seen them? Years ago. But it's the most important thing in my life. No. You do the things that you can't stand to do, and you don't begrudge the people you love for doing this stuff for them. You start to enjoying the things you don't want to do because you love them so much. Oh, BB, I do your most. Uh, what was that? You made fun of me for being disgusting? Well, that's. Oops. That's when I go up. Okay, here we go. Okay. Let's see. Yes, let's do this. Here we go. I got to do it for each one. Again, I just. Okay, try that. Boom, boom, boom. Boop, 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 boop. Ba, ba, ba. Boop, 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 boop. Ah. Uh, 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 uh. Well, somebody told me to hit the three little dots with yo-yo. We'll see. I'm just experimenting, see if I can keep them at bay. But if he's like anybody I have no idea how any of this works. Right? I mean, it wasn't until the other day there's three little dots. Right? All this time I could, but it's really not important. What's important is I started this story off with the song by Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, you know, and Mercy, Mercy Me. And those were done in 71. And like I was telling you, I just happened, someone said that I was like the Forrest Gump of this aesthetic motif. And yeah, I kind of am, I'm, Mama says, except I would say Grandma says, And when people say hurtful things, it hurts my heart because I feel their pain. I don't care about me. I care about where they have to come from to say those kind of things, right? And I'm not going to comment on other people's channels unless I can say something good, right? So I'm not going to say anything about anybody unless I can say, like Jimmy Dore. I love Jimmy Dore, right? Joe Rogan, I like that guy. Don't love him, I like him. There's totally gracefulness. I think I'm saying it wrong. She's amazing. She's a really good investigative reporter. She gets all her facts right. And then she writes a script and then gets images and edits it and does an amazing, every show is amazing, She doesn't do live chat, stream content, but she does really good stuff. And then there's a husband and wife team, and they have been gotten hammered, a little trolliness that people go on with is nothing compared. These people have been hammered, and they're saying some real truthful things. And the thing about those guys, they have big audiences. Each show gets 10, 15,000, and that's because they've been doing it since the beginning of YouTube. If you've been around from YouTube, you started out. If I had started out then, I'd like have 1 billion people watching, subscribers. But I started last May. So, and I am very happy for the cadre I have because you are all beautiful, special, and amazing, different kind of folks. Well, what kind of job I did? Let's see. I was a shamanic, or no, I shouldn't say was. I am a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. And everything I do in that shade. So I was, a master electrician. I was a master artist. I was a scenic lighting designer. I was a newspaper, photojournalist. And then for 30 years, I was, a demographer, I guess. I mean, if you were going to put it under any little heading, it was that. And I would look at trends for people. So, but I was, someone further in the chat said, how long have I been homeless? And I pretty much said since I was born. And pretty much that's true, And my dad, who was in the military, when he was in our family moved around 28 different postings. So, and that's why my mom said, okay, I've had enough of this. Yes, you're at the top. We always get a nice car and a nice house and servants, but you're not making any money. And, no, I have to make all their clothes. My mom used to make all her clothes. So, so that, and I was brought up by my grandma, and I had all these amazing elders, not old people, but elders, who took it upon themselves to show me what was going on. Now, their ulterior motive was, wow, this kid, he has the potential. He could be that next thing, and then I'd be remembered for being this, So I had a lot of that. And that's why, I was always, because they would turn me on to somebody else. So I'll do, because I had my electrical mentor when I was 9. He had the first master electrician's license in the United States. He started the IBEW. He wired the Empire State Building. He was Nikola Tesla's #1 bench electrician. And he brought me up to do all those things, So I am I was a really good electrician by the time I was 12. They were sending me out to fix things when I was, 13, 14. And, that's a trade I can do anywhere in the world. I've done it everywhere, Australia, Europe, you name it. Electricity is electricity. And people are scared of it. And if you know what you're doing, they'll pay you whatever you want. That was another rule by my grandma. Never work for anyone who doesn't need you. They need me more than I need them, right? So they'll pay me whatever I want. They'll let me do it however I want to do it. Now, the problem is right about now in this window of opportunity is nobody wants a itinerant scholar. And I used to get, when I got really sick, I still got hired to run jobs because I could roll around in a golf cart and get people, make them, the people who are working on the job, the mechanics, I could get them to be very productive by bringing them the materials, having lists of things. Okay, you've done that. Okay, now do this. And so I would optimize them. And, those people would like it until those electric businesses got bought out by corporations that were, often, somewhere else. And they just had a protocol and everything was done over the internet and you couldn't talk to anybody to get hired. My basic commodity is being able to interact with people. I don't need the people, but I can interact really well with them, Nobody seems to want that anymore. So that's why I talk to you guys. Yep, exactly. Super Bob, the ability to wire big buildings in a single dingle. Yep, exactly. What's out in the sky? Is it a bird? It's a plane? No, it's super electrician. Yeah, so. And I did some amazing stuff. Michael Moody, who ran, so I was, scenic lighting designer, and mostly in ME. And ME is a master electrician of the house. And they rule. They're like, the king. Because, you turn the electricity off, nothing works in a theater. Something breaks and you can't, ME is important. And again, they get paid what they want. They do it the way they want it done. And they help everybody. I would help everybody, right? Even the actors. I said, don't you know what a key light is? He goes, what's that? Well, I'm going to put a little piece of tape on the floor. So when you're standing there, the audience are going to be able to see you. If you stand a foot over there, you're going to be in the dark. Now, you can't tell you're in the dark because you're not looking at yourself. And so that's called the key light. So people can key on you. Well, why don't you just put a light over there? I'd have to put 8 million lights. There's not enough electricity in the theater. We only can have 80 lights up on that grid, so you got to stand in the light, So all of these skill sets I have, they don't even need photographers anymore. Everyone's got their phone, taking pictures, putting them on the internet, and then algorithms are grabbing them and mushing them up into whatever, back in I call it the Thucydides hook, or the Thucydides vice, or the Thucydides paint yourself in a corner. So who's Thucydides? He's the father of written history. People like Socrates and Plato, they didn't write stuff down. Plato kind of did. But, when Thucydides wrote his big tomb on the Peloponnesian War, he became the Fox News of the Roman Empire. So someone once said to him, so Thucydides, you're the daddy of written history. What is it? And he said, whatever the Romans pay me to write. And that's right where we are right now. The fact is that we have MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, and about a zillion other, things on the internet giving you fake news, meaning their opinion of what it is. But they say it's news, breaking news. Right? And one of the greatest things, I put a lot of how I got here was through John Birmingham's channel. Because he just, I was staying in his place, helping him transition into the school. And that's what I did, I should have gotten paid, but no, I lived on his largesse. I mean, I used to get paid back in the day when I was a shrink to do that for rich people. You know, they had somebody in their family who was a little, and I would be, the person who won, like Grandpa Stahl. You know, he was brilliant, he was sharp, but he was so into being brilliant and sharp, he didn't see the bus coming. So the first 2 years, I just hung out with Grandpa Stahl and kept him from walking in front of the bus. And there's a guy named Robert Wilson who has a Robert Wilson dance company. He did a thing called Einstein on the Beach and postcard, letters, Queen Victoria. And he had this dance company down on Spring Street. He was rich. He was a trust fund boy. And he got himself a loft back in the day before Soho was Soho. He's one of the rich guys who first moved in there. His dance company, it was great. Thursday was open. He had a big spread, and we'd all go and dance. And he would pick the people who wanted to be his dancers in his dance company, right? So I could dance pretty good. I went to Juilliard. I had girlfriends who were dancers. I would dance. I would go to that thing with them, and we would dance together. Okay, you too. And so anyway, then Robert realized, oh, wow, you can build sets, you can paint, you can, you're an electrician, you're this, you're that, you can, and you're a physical therapist, and you're a massage therapist, and yes. And I learned how to do something really well. Just focus on that, do it well, move on to the next, right? So all those different skill sets I had, that's how I learned them. I went to the greatest teachers of teaching, and New York City had a lot of them. And I learned all those skill sets. Now, I didn't make that the end all and be all of who I was and just did that for my whole life. Well, if I was, I'd be a tenured professor somewhere, and I have a nice little retirement fund. But I had a lot of friends who did that, and they retired, and in '08, their whole 401k disappeared. They became homeless. I had a really good time in that interim period of 40 years. And when the crash happened, it didn't bother me because I've been living like this right now. Now, there's a big crash coming, kids. And I'm giving you the countdown, as October comes around, we'll be in the 14th month. Now, we're already in the crash, all the different, the big one is where the interest rates switch, long-term and short-term switch. And that's already happened, and the other big one is when the price of oil keeps going down, no matter what. Oh, we're doing really great. Everyone's employed. Oil price keeps going down. Iran, which was one of the largest oil producers, taken off the market. Venezuelan, the place that has the most oil on the planet, taken off the market. The two largest, there's also Saudi Arabia, but those are two of the largest taken off the market, and then Syria and, Mr. Gaddafi, they were big oil producers. They're Iraq, big oil producer. They've been cut back, and still the price goes down. So the thing of, scarcity should cause the price. No, not happening. We are already in the crash because we had the longest, from '08 to about 2016, we had the largest increase of economic, but it went all to the rich people, and they've already sent it offshore, and the factories aren't coming back, and all that has to happen. The only thing keeping America afloat is that we are the petrodollar, and what crashed England back in the 50s is when they tried to push Egypt out of the Suez Canal, and Egypt kicked England's butt. So they were no longer, had the control of the ocean. And so the pound just fell off the cliff, and the dollar became the petrodollar, right? Now, who owns most of our debt? China. They're the people who bought all our treasury. Dollar goes, oh, well, the balance of payments, blah, blah, blah. They're buying more. We're buying more from them. But we don't buy any of the crap we get from China. We just give them treasury notes, worthless pieces of paper. And at some time, something like $4 trillion worth of our treasury notes have already come to maturity. At any time, they go, okay, we want the gold. We don't have any gold. As soon as they do that, we are all homeless in America. And that is why San Francisco, LA, Seattle, all of those places are being overrun by the homeless because they're not coming from someplace else. Those are people who had jobs who no longer have them. Those are people who I used to live in San Francisco with my first wife for about a little less than a year. And it would take me a whole nother hour. Look, I'm 1 hour to tell you all the exciting things we did there. I mean, we lived through the People's Temple and the shooting of Mayor Moscone and a whole bunch of things. And someday I'll tell you those stories. But why there's such the whole West Coast is because the creeping crud of the destruction of everything of American is starting over on the West, and because China's over the West there, and it's kind of. And the other side of the coin is Fukushima has totally nuked the Pacific. And where it's really doing the worst is Northern California up to Alaska. Why do you think Alaska is getting so hot and the permafrost is melting and the ice sheets are leaving and the water and it's drying up? That's the other thing. Alaska is drying up. And, good old Donnie's just opened up all of that to be logged and, weld and you name it. So 15 months. And so there's, so these colleges and all these kids, we have to stop this, get rid of the, that's not going to happen, kids. Sorry. You don't even have a good song. You don't have a Marvin Gaye to sing you a song like What's Going On. And no one's even looking at what's going on. Now, I'm telling you stories about what's going on a stream of consciousness here. And I don't even look at that. That's you guys are talking amongst yourselves. And so I'm just giving it to you. And because more than half, 3/4 of the people come back to watch this. They're not really here for the live chat. And so, but I love it when you're here because I energetically feel you. I feel Buddy, I feel Fish, I feel Robinson, and then I do sit, I need to wear 4 pairs of glasses to read what you say, but I'll get in there, John. Well, John isn't stingy. No, he wants to be generous, but people get into his head and manipulate him, and he really hates that. That's what makes him stressed out. Is when people are manipulating. And all these other people who saw me as some kind of savior, and when I wasn't, and when we would talk on Gmail and on the phone, I would, they said, I want to know what you think about this, this, and this. And I would tell them, and they get very upset because I was telling them the truth. They want to hear that. And now just me saying that, they will go do whatever they try to do. But I love them all. I say, I would love to still talk to them, but they go to these other channels and then people come here and go, wow, this guy ain't what they say he is. He's kind of interesting. And then they get a hold of me at Gmail and say, why did that person say that about you? I said, well, go back and watch all the others. And that's what they do. I've just learned how to look at all the numbers at the bottom of the page of this channel. And what's true, a little bit more, somewhere between half and 3/4 of all the views are people who watch it not while it's live. But the thing that is really amazing is that when I'm doing a live chat, the people who are on it stay for the whole show. Most people come to a live chat and stay maybe 6 minutes. It's average, I think, is 20 something for all of YouTube-ishness. But a good portion of you guys stay for the whole show. So, right now I have 1 hour and 3 minutes and 53 seconds. But then when I look at the thing, there will be like, right now, 10 people watching. But that's the average. When I look at how many people watch, it'll be 40, but 10 of the average. But then when I said you've been on for 1 hour and 4 minutes, but then it'll say, combined watchership is 1,000 hours. And that's one of those things that stands out. That's why YouTube came to me and said, hey, we want you to, be a star. You let us monetize you, let us control you, let us own you. We're looking for content. And I said, let me think about it. And I just kept saying, let me think about it. I wasn't really at the point of saying yes, because it was too complicated. I didn't want to they made me want to do. They sent a nice assistant to help me do that. I would have said, sure, let's do it. Let's go to put me in a house in Maui, and I'll put on a really good show. I'll do some amazing stuff because I used to do. Not only did I do radio, to TV. Go look at Potato Wolf. So John is a generous man. He really is. He has a really saintly heart, but he can be manipulated by powers that he can't even understand because he is hooked to them in a way that most people aren't. And I'm going to spend the last few minutes of this chat on this. And that is, if you want to be your own soldier, you want to be your own person, you want to have, what are we doing here on earth? It's not to make money. It's not to have a big house. It's not to be famous. It's not to have, a trophy spouse or girlfriend. No, it's not to look good, to be cut, to be, no. What we're here to is to experience life. Now, I have experienced life. Now, I don't believe in good and bad. I do not get, again, grandma's one of her 3 rules. A, doctor, do no harm. I don't get involved if what I do is going to bring harm. Right? 2, don't get involved unless you have an exit strategy and you're only going in to protect the innocent. 3, don't get involved unless you going in to understand the situation, meaning not to press upon your own belief on the situation. And that's the problem of imperialism. That's what it does. That's, again, I was talking about anthropology, and back in the day it was invented to show the rest of the world, you're lucky to be a slave because we are the God-given powers, white males, to rule the world. That's what Mr. Rockefeller used, and that's what the king said. It was God's consent that that person was king. So that's not what it is. We're here on this earth to experience life, to navigate it, not just go the way that your church says or the king says or what your employer says or your girlfriend says or your mother says or your dad says. No. You're here to learn about yourself. And that self isn't this mud puppet. Self is your internal soul, your consciousness. And your consciousness isn't this. Your consciousness is off in some place in a server somewhere. And so, that's what you're here to learn about that, right? And so most people let themselves get painted into a corner because they're scared. Well, am I going to pay my bills? What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. Why doesn't, I've been doing this for the last 30 years and no one watches it and no one cares. Well, maybe you should think about why instead of doing the same thing over and over and over again. But that's what the powers that shouldn't be want you to do the same stupid thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. But what did, the boys of psychology say? Well, that means you're nuts. I don't expect any outcome, except I serve love's co-creation. So I know there's going to be a loving alchemical situation. I have no idea what it's going to be, but it's going to be, right? Well, again, I'm not reading. I just kind of blink at what you guys are saying. And again, art should never be, why do we like Renoir? Why do we like Da Vinci? Why do we love Vincent van Gogh? Now, there was a guy, cut his ear off. Why? Because he did all of that art as an artist in the first person. And I kind of go on big time in my writing about that. And I'm going to try to print some of it out and read it to you guys. And, when I was a young lad, I had a really bad, tic. I'd stutter. And because I was sick. And it did, being that sick for the first 10 years of my life, did things to the mechanical things in my body. And that thing I was trying to talk about the other day about the myelin sheath, where trauma gets put into, I had a doctor who kind of, understood it organically. He didn't intellectually put it out like I've read other people. And I have a process that I developed uh, with my fellows at, Fort Hamilton at the VA called DPL, Deep Psychic Loving. Because the only way you can like erase that trauma in your myelin sheath is through deep psychic loving. So I had, a stutter, and I got over it because this one doctor really kind of did that. And his wife was a dog trainer, and he was a person who dealt with allergies. And I, was so sick, my body twigged on any kind of stimuli. So I realized, this guy's like overstimulated. So how are we had to push him over the cliff. So he told my mother, your son has to stay with me for about 2 weeks. There's so much I have to do. And so what did he do? He brought me to his wife, and she was a, breeder and trainer of horses, cows, sheep, and dogs. Right? She didn't, the horses and dogs, she made a lot of money on breeding them. And, well, she made a lot of money on breeding everybody. Anyway, so she had me mucking out all of the stalls, and I slept. About 3 days I was here, this one dog had a litter. I would clean that dog, before she wasn't doing too good. And so I just loved on that mama dog. And then I was right there. That mama dog wanted me there when her pups were born. And so I was there when the lady, who was also a vet, and we birthed all those dogs. And there was one dog that was a runt, the wicked runt, who was like almost dead at birth. And I, nursed it and took care of it. And because her mama dog was like, that's the runt, I don't want it. She was focused on the other dogs. And I brought that dog up, and I slept in the barn with those dogs and those cows and all the animals. And after 2 weeks of it's like one big, representation of an allergy stimulation. It pushed me right off the cliff. From that point on, and this was the summer after I had that experience of being 10 years old and being, incarcerated by the Catholic Church in a hospital for having pneumonia and strep throat and being, a temperature of 140. And when this nun stuck her face in my face, I thought she was a wing and winky because I was watching The Wizard of Oz on TV. And so when I broke and I was in a pool of my sweat and everything else, I was tied to the bed, and I had a Hannibal Lecter thing, so I couldn't say anything. I was there for a couple hours before my parents showed up, and they said, okay, we're taking them away. And that summer, my mom sent me to that doctor because other folks that she knew said, you should really, this guy is pretty interesting. So he understood the whole thing of the myelin sheath and the trauma and all that, but he wasn't writing books about it. He was experimenting, and I was like one of his experiments. So that's where we are right now. We have about 15 months before something of a trauma, just like 9/11 was a trauma. And it probably won't be any bigger than that, but people call, oh, that's the worst thing that ever happened in America. No. The corporate structure of poisoning America is the worst thing, Billions of people die from the crap that the corporate profit margin makes, And I keep talking of the alternative aesthetic and why I actually spent 3 years with John. I didn't need a place. I could have gone out almost any place. But no, I thought I could help, right? I had those 3 little things, doctor doing no harm, didn't do any harm. Went in there, tried to save the innocence of John, because he is an innocent soul. He really is. All this other stuff is just heaped upon him, and he can't navigate it. And the third one is I don't get involved unless I convert. Well, man, I have learned so much. John has taught me so much. And I have to thank John and his generosity. He is a generous guy. He's just. And so he's like, somebody is talking to his ear. So John is like, doesn't even want to hear from me. So. And That's I'll take my. And you know what? Bring me my check, and if I have enough money, I'm gonna have another round of that fruit because that stuff is. Have you ever had it that way? Oh, you should. It is the best. And that's $4. If my bill isn't too big, I'll spend another $4 to have fruit with freshly made whipped cream. Oh, see, John can't do that kind of stuff, and so his what that for is in reflection of John, of his psyche. Did you ever see the movie? Oh, what do we got? Oh, I can afford it. I'll go for another round and some more hot water. No, actually, I'll finish this up. And so, you ever see the movie Monsters? No, it's called Forbidden Planet, and it came from the Greek story of what's his name? The guy who was so smart, the king had to put him on an island, and because he was scared of him, but he didn't want to kill him because he knew that he's going to probably need his smarts. So does anybody know the Greek story I'm talking about? Then Shakespeare took that and wrote another story about the same thing. And then they made this movie, Forbidden Planet, right? And so the basic line is when you get so smart, you start making these machines that do things for you to the point where you become a god. And that's where we're going with transhumanism. So there was, in this Forbidden Planet, there was this planet of brilliant, amazing, all they did was think and have art. They were like the Greeks, right? And they gave up war and they made a machine. They didn't want to do anything. So they just wanted to have a machine that all they had to do is think of, I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, bingo, there it is. Just like in Star Trek, they had the replicator, right? But you have to ask the replicator and they cannot think about it. So what happens is, as soon as they turn the machine on, the monster from the id. So you have your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and then you have your id. And that's where all that dark, icky stuff that you didn't even think you had is. And that's what's so important about having good thoughts, because the thing that motivates the dark, icky stuff is when you focus on, oh, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. I want to kill myself. Oh, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. I feel so bad. No, that was actually pretty good. Last week, really, most people would have killed themselves with all the shit I went through last week. But it all worked out. And I knew love's co-creation was going to, it worked out. Like beginning of the story, I was out in the middle of nowhere. My phone didn't work. And and this, wrecker went by. And I just was like this. He stopped and it was from Firestone, which was like 50 miles from where I was. I don't know what he was doing out there. But I said, hey, Firestone. I go, these tires are from Firestone. And I have that insurance about, road damage. And boy, look at it. You go, boy, this is like the perfect picture of road damage, because that tire was destroyed down to the rim. The car, so he kind of pulled, lifted my car up, put the spare on, and took me back to the Firestone. And because they went on the conveyor, oh yeah, that car, matter of fact, both those tires are thing, and we'll give you 2 new tires, and we'll rebuild that little thing. But when the tire destroyed itself, it wrecked it up. So it was going to cost $600, and it only cost me about 140 to 170, something like that. But that was so much. I couldn't afford to fix the car. 170, not so bad. That's why I had to look at the thing. I only had so much money left. And bingo. And then not only did they do that, they said, because of this, we have these coupons where we can change your oil, put a new filter, fill up all your fluids, give you new antifreeze, check all you rotate everything, balance this for $7. You want that? I said, please. So they found all these other little things that need to be fixed. And the ones that could fit under that $7, they fixed, So it was a miracle that tire got destroyed from me running over a piece of something in the highway. And then I was taken over to a place where they fixed my car so it would last a little longer. Now, some people would have been, but I just said, I said a little prayer. I looked each way. I was like, God knows, 30, 40 miles to the nearest any place I could even ask somebody if I could use their phone to call somebody. And then the wrecker went by, and it was Firestone. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know? And that's how life on this earth is supposed to be. Not like poor John, who has to, every time I say let's meditate, and I have you go into state and go into your place where you evacuate all that anger, all that self-doubt, all of that anxiety, all that hatred, all of that dark ickiness. That's why I have you do that. Well, John has to do it in his everyday life. I hate you. Get out of my house. Throw stuff around, break things, and then paint things like that on the floor. Now, I understand exactly what you're talking about, buddy, but it's also an amazing piece of art and bravery of putting that dark ickiness on the floor. So, again, John is my friend. I only wish the best for him. I spent 3 years trying to be the good example, to cook for him, to give him nourishing food, to try to get him to have a good life. And all it did was make him anxious. I mean, if you looked at the basic timeline, 80% of the time he was having a good time with me. The other was not so much. And then the YouTube thing got in between of us because it went viral and people were watching it, and he didn't tell me. He was making a chunk of change out of it. And then he started to get upset because people were telling him to shut up and just let me talk. And then he threw me up because they wanted to listen to me and him. And then, I went away for a month, and had an adventure. And then when I called up, say how he was, can you come back? Oh, they really want to talk to you. He hadn't had, And again, doctor, do no harm. Don't, go into to save the innocents and to learn something. And that's what I've done. And right now, it's on to the next thing. I'll always care about John. And that's why you have to put John into perspective. I don't really, everyone has a friend who always talks about their ex. Well, I don't want to talk about John as my ex. He's my friend. And in the last few days, I've talked to 6 of my old friends that I've known 10 years. And these are, 3 of them I hadn't talked to in 15 years, And one of them called me, still have the same phone number. And I just happened to be in a place where it rang. Oh, look who it is. Hey, how you doing? And it was like I just spoke to them an hour ago. But all the kids are growing up and I got grandkids. And I talked to them for an hour or two. And, a number of people who would, thought I was, the savior would call me up and ask me about this, that, and the other thing. And they would get upset that, the phone would ring and I would say, hey, I'm doing a live chat. And they we'll stop the live chat and talk to me. Well, I would hit the, so I would make our conversation part of live chat. Ooh, boy, they didn't like that. I told them that this is what it was, and they still don't like that. And so there's, a couple of people who are in that stage, and they, again, comment on other channels about, how terrible I am, and then, definitely I've doubled down on John Boy to, be that little voice in their ear. Oh, he's a monster. Oh, he's terrible. Oh, and they watch this religiously. And again, I'm like Tweety Bird. They don't know me too well, do they? Now, I don't really call them out, say who they are, but, I can tell energetically when they're watching. And that's, like I said, of all the people in the chat, you're only about 1/5 of the people who are actually watching this live. And then that's only about a little less than half of everybody who will end up watching it in the next 48 hours. So, and that's, the numbers on the bottom of the page that I can get from YouTube that I can figure out. I'm realizing that, boy, YouTube, Google, Facebook, all of those social media, they own us. That's why, I'm happy to be out there in the middle of nowhere, you know, because I get no signal. The only kind of signal I get is off the skip. Late at night, I get AM radio from all over the world. It bounces all over the atmosphere. It comes into my little magic 89-cent radio I got number 10, 15, 20 years ago. Thank you. This is the bomb. Look at that, kids. Berries. Fresh whipped cream. You can't. I love this place. Anyway. So John is a good boy. And actually, John is one of those people who is a patron saint, And I understand how, come on, I lived with a guy for 3 years. And, he drove me nuts. And I could never trust him. At any moment of the time, he could throw me out in the middle of the night in this, a snowstorm, because he had no consciousness of what that was going to do to me. And that doesn't mean that he's an evil or bad person. It just means that his myelin sheath is so damaged from traumas that he keeps replaying, which makes the more damage get worse and worse and worse. And John is, I keep calling him the canary in the coal mine. And he's very important. And all those songs he makes, like the one he just did about, getting the iPhone and talking to a trans, a person who's talking about his, it's like, come on. All you got to do is look at what's going on. And so he is playing out, if people realize, meaning just a little nudge one way or the other, and John's little videos would be great art. They are great art. Because the one he just did recently so amazingly, perfectly described one of the existential threats of humanity at this minute, because he has the latest iPhone that he paid, whatever I don't know what you pay for those things, because the phone I got was given to me just, if you change to our carrier, yes, the hood phone doesn't work anywhere except in the hood, and but all the telecommunications are being bought out, so everything's going to be one mega corp, period, But John put himself on the list to get the newest 11, with that super duper camera. Really? And he's always going on about, we got to pay my bills. Well, don't buy a $2,000 phone. My telecommunication skills are just a little bit better than a paper cup and a string. And that's good enough for me. And it should be good enough for everybody else. But no, because people have gotten addicted to the newest trend, the newest thing, the newest this. Oh, I want to be a vegan. I want to be this. Well, that vegan food is as poisonous as any other crap. Mr. Warren Buffett is buying land out in the middle of nowhere and burying 100 acres underground in glass things where he controls the environment. And that 100 acres will produce more food than 1,000 acres the way we do it industrially. And it'll have no poisons. It'll have no contamination. And that is being done on the down low all over the world. The stuff that's coming, global warming. Oh man, the planet global warms and global cools. The real deal that we should be worried about is go watch the movie The Day After Tomorrow, done by Art Bell and this other guy. It starts out with all the ice sheets melting, and then the seas, stop being salty. So the the Gulf of Mexico stops until the whole northern hemisphere freezes. Why they're building the wall is not to keep the Mexicans out, it's to keep us here so we'll die when this happens. And all of this stuff is right in front of us, but nobody wants to see it. So that's why I decided, okay, so John showed me, oh, look, there's this thing called the YouTube. A lot of people watch it. Okay. They seem to be interested in what I have to say. Okay. I'm going to start up my own little channel. Not to make money that John was making, but to build a chorus, a cadre, to be the pebbles in the pond. That's all it needs to keep us from hitting that iceberg. Just, navigation. Whipped cream and yum, yum, yum. This will keep me happy for a couple of days. Why, that is good. Woo. So I put it away. Don't just blah, 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 blah. I'm eating about a little less. I'm about 60% left. All right. Anyway, my friend, let's see, 115. Well, everyone's kind of, sloughing off, going off and doing things. I understand. Yeah, they're out there. Fish, buddy, love you guys. Love everybody. Robinson. Who's it? Yep, kiwi. Buddy's a kiwi. I like kiwis. They're a cute little bird. I remember looking at them on my can of shoe polish. I said, what is that? And my grandma said, I don't know, but let's look go to the library. So she picked up the can of shoe polish and we went to New York Library and said, so, where's the etymology department? We went and found the guy who could tell us what that was and then show us the book about it all. But then showed stories about New Zealand, right? And the mighty Maori people. They're the only people who really stood up to the white folk. But they were so far out of the way that they didn't really show up until later, right? And by that time, the Maori knew that they were coming, and so they would go out there with all these half-naked women and loads of fruit and booze and get on the board and get the white guys drunk and then kill them all. And then take all the stuff they wanted and then they'd sink the boat. And they did that for a number of years until the English kind of figured that out and then sent a warship. And then instead of sending the naked girls and the booze, they sent the warriors out there. All these big, long canoes with torches, tiki torches. And basically they said, listen, we know you got guns, we got a few, but we got this French lawyer and he's going to negotiate. We went up there and said, okay, there are a few million of these guys and they will die the last person before letting you take this place. But they don't want to die. They don't want their lovely place destroyed. So what they will do is they will rent parts of it to you. And whatever parts they rent to you, they have to be 51% of whatever government, business, whatever. So in the beginning, the Maori people were cherished and were important and valued. And pretty much they stayed that way up until the IMF and the World Bank got a hold of them. So, buddy, do you know that Black Crow guy? It's a tall, thin guy, little balding. big guy. I think he's from Australia, but he talks a lot. He was really big on that thing of the Muslims getting shot and how it was a red flag and wasn't, and what it was, and mind control and this and that. And he got a lot of blowback on that. But I like it. That's another channel I like. He does really good shows. I mean, and these people spend some time. Me and I just hit go live and do these things. You know, the biggest energy that I put together is to energetically, yeah, Max. Yep, I got. Yep, Crow House. Yep, love that guy. What do you think, buddy? You like him? Anybody else got a comment about Max? I really, like I said, he puts, me, I don't do any of that editing stuff or anything. But he really does a pretty good job. Yep. Boo, boo, boo. Okay, I'll take the check now. So, how long we been? Hour and 35 minutes. Okay. I gotta go do stuff. And it might rain, so I want to go do it before I have to dance between the raindrops. Maybe tomorrow, but in the next few days I'll do another live chat. But maybe tomorrow. If it's a nice day tomorrow. Loneliness. What about it, Robinson? Yeah, else but me. Else but me. It's very interesting in America. We're making it very hard to get in and out of this country. Thank you, dear. Oh. Ba, 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 ba. Well, you should have some of that fruit with whipped cream. Yeah, it makes me happy. It's my happy meal. Much better than a McDonald's happy meal.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway. Oh, it just is, because everything is so computerized. There is, back in the day, you just walk to this person behind a desk and you talk and they figure out how to get you your passport. Now, you almost have to have a representative. Either you're going on tour with some company, or be sent there by some business, or et cetera, et cetera. But the kind of travel, thank you, dear, that I used to do in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, very difficult. And I remember when the Troubles were in Ireland, and there were things like, there was a Freddie Laker had a 747. He had one, right? And he would fly it from Kennedy to Heathrow, right? There and back, once a day, right? And I think he came from Heathrow in the morning and got to New York by the afternoon, and then he left in the evening, right? And he had his little thing in the Pan Am building right there next to Penn Central, 42nd Street. And you can go in there, and for the first time I ever took that flight, it was $45, right? So went there, and you had to have your little passport. Showed them my passport, $45, and they had a bus that would leave from that little office on 42nd Street at about 7 p.m. You'd get on, and they would drive you to Kennedy. You didn't even go into the airport. You didn't do any of that. That bus drove up to the airplane, right? And, your bags, and they would put the little ticket things on the bags when you were in the bus, and they would just take it from the bus and put it on the airplane, and you go up the steps, fly away. And I did that for a good 10 years. And the last time I did it, the price went up to $95 or $85, You couldn't beat it, right? And so they don't have anything like that anymore. And it was They didn't squash everybody together. There was nice kind of comfy seats. And the 747 had the lounge. It wasn't first class. Everybody paid, you know, what you paid. There was no first, there was no class. Everyone had the same kind of seat. But upstairs was a lounge, which was like, being at the Playboy Club. They had this kind of circular bar and these kind of loungy couches all the way around there. And you went up there. And if you went up there, you paid $20, right? And to go up those steps, you paid $20. And you could have as much food until they ran out of it, and as much booze until they ran out of it. And they never ran out of it. And they had really good, yummy things. And it was quite interesting. The thing kind of sat very comfortably, maybe 40 or 50 people. Right? Well, that aircraft flew. They didn't stack it full. They didn't wait until every seat was full. So it was like always maybe 70% full, up to 90-something% full. And majority of the people, that $20, they didn't want to spend to go up there. They brought their own lunch with them. They brown bagged it, and you could bring your own booze on that airplane, and or you could get booze too. They had the lady with the cart, and so you could do that. You didn't have to go up there, but $20, I'd go up there. For under $100, I got first class thing, and talk to interesting people. And found, I would, meet somebody who, oh, you're going, what are you going to do in London? You got a place to stay? Oh, you can stay at my house. So I met a lot of really interesting folk, right? So, do. There we go. So, like I said, live like a millionaire. Just don't be one. Don't worry about anything. Serve love's co-creation, and that's the kind of. And you're here to experience life, right? So I've traveled all around the world. Did it, done it, and one of the things, I did it over, like from 1964 is when I first started my travels. Was it 64? Yeah, when I got summarily thrown out of the seminary, and my parents had moved to a kind of bucolic space in Long Island. We're no longer kind of close to New York, but we're still only 40 miles from Manhattan, and maybe 20 miles to my grandma. And so, but we're right on the border of Nassau County and Suffolk County. And that was it's where all the people who were, nouveau riche of the 20s, the guys, what was that book about the rich guy during the roaring 20s? That nobody knew who he was, but he always had these great parties at his house out in Long. That's right where it was, right there near Oyster Bay and Glen Cove and Old Brookville. There are all these estates of these kind of rich guys who made millions, just like, the .com people. And and when we were there, they were kind of dying off. And there were farms out there. There were more potatoes, like Levittown was a potato farm. More potatoes were grown in Long Island than there were out there in Idaho. So I basically, got thrown out of the seminary, and that'll take another 2 hours to tell you that story. And I was going to go to this other like prison camp prep school for the uber rich, all these kids who had gotten thrown out. And one of my mentors, Cardinal Cushing, got me into the school, had the connects, because my parents couldn't afford that one. Anyway, so I had nothing to do. So I basically, one day I said, I'm tired of this, just sitting at home. So I wrote a note and put it on my phone. I'm not running away. I'm just taking a vacation. Put on my thing. And I'd been working at a golf course, and I made $300. And then they got rid of us and put in a whole new staff. And that story would take another hour to tell. And so I had $300 in cash. And so I hitchhiked. Oh no, what I did was I took a Long Island Railroad train. I, you know, hitchhiked from where our house into the town where the railroad was, which was about 12, 15 miles. And, farmer guy, hey, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the railroad. Oh, yeah, I'll give a ride there. And went, took, for $3, went into Penn Station, went over to where, Amtrak was and got a train to Boston, right? Got the train to Boston. Then I, you know, went from that train station to a bus station and took a bus from um, Boston into Maine, where I had some friends in Maine. And I got out to the largest town close to them, about 200 miles from them, and I started hitchhiking on not major roads, but farm roads. And I got about 15. Took me almost a day to go that 200 miles, and I arrived in their little hamlet. About 3 in the morning. It was a beautiful night, and they, this little hamlet had hardly any lights. And I went to their house, and I curled up on their front door, on the welcome mat, and and I knew the father of the household, who was the main dude of this town. He always came out and would get the mail from the day before, which he would never get because he wanted to look at the mail at night. He just wanted to, have a cocktail with his wife, watch a little TV, and have a good time. So he kind of came out, and the door kind of whacked me in the head. I said, "Ow, what are you doing here?" I said, "Hi, I'm here on vacation." And he kind of looked at me. "Do your parents know that you're here?" I said, "Well, I left them a note saying that I was taking a vacation." And he goes, "Well, come on in." He goes, so he comes in, and he's wearing his wife's, robe, and he was the first one up. He was like my dad. He started making oatmeal and coffee. And he goes, "You want some eggs?" "I want some eggs." He thought, I normally don't have eggs, but I feel like eggs and bacon. You feel like that's sure. Yep, Mr. Hart, yeah, no problem. And he goes, "T is here." He goes, "That's who I really want to see, his daughter." And he goes, "So you want to spend the summer with us?" I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Well, there's some rules. One, we have to call your parents and tell them that you're here, and I'll tell them that it's not a problem. And two, you need to be employed, because if you're going to marry my daughter, you have to be. What? I'm 14. I'm only kidding. But he goes, "I see the way you two look at each other, so." So I'm like, I've got an ice house. I need somebody to cut ice. You're a good electrician. The farm needs to be totally rewired, and the storefront needs to be rewired. And I want to put in an ice cream machine, so it needs a new service. Anyway, so that's what I did. And T helped me. She was my helper, so she was always with me. And we would work maybe 3 hours a day. Then we'd go play tennis, and then we would sail. She was a great sailor. And we sailed all along lake, and there were islands and little places, and we go there, and it was the sweetest of love, because there was no lust. Neither of our hormones had popped, and so we would just. She loved writing poetry, and she would, you know, write poetry, and I would tell her stories, and then we'd lie together like two cats in the sun. And then the sun would go down and start, in Maine, even the summertime, sun not hitting you, you can feel that coldness. No, Robinson, money isn't the root of all the evil. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And the need, that sense of need. We don't need anything because we have love's co-creation. So say we all. So anyway, I came back from that, and I came back the same way I came. I just, "I'll buy an airplane ticket." I said, "No, Dad, I'll get back. No problems." And so from that point on, I did that. That was the rest of my life. Later that year, when school year was over in end of April, came back and I started working. I always worked with, when I was in New York, with the stalls. And I was a really good electrician. And there were certain things that I did really good. he had a bunch of clients who had these old factories, like from the 19th century. No one could fix the machines. Grandpa Stoll showed me how to, taught me how to feel the machine. And because he was a mystic electrician, he taught me to be a mystic electrician. And the other group we had were this two real estate companies that would, take buildings, that were built in the 20s and, put a new lobby in and knew this, knew that. And me and this Puerto Rican guy, we were a team, and we would do whole buildings. Now, that you have to realize that in New York, pretty much Local 3 ran everything. Well, Grandpa Stoll started Local 3, but his shop was mostly Local 3, but there were other guys who didn't fit into the union category and did jobs that didn't fit in the union category. So because he started it, he could do whatever the heck he wanted. So he had this shop that was non-union and union. So he had both sides of the street covered. And they had about, I don't know, 15 guys in the shop, which was a small shop compared to a lot of other shops, but it had the most prestige and pull of any shop in the city. And so there were about 4 to 6 of us who were in the I became part of the, we all, 3 of them didn't. They had issues that they couldn't become part of the union, but I became part of the union when I was 19. So I used to fix all this stuff for this real estate company. And when I was 14, this one guy said, listen now, we just bought this thing down on Avenue B and 9th Street, which is Lower East Side. And in when was that? 64, 65, could have been 65, somewhere between 64 and 66. I guess it was 65, the summer of 65 or 66. Anyway, so we bought this, and it was a nunnery, and we're turning it into apartments. And so, we want you down there, go suss out the what kind of power they got, take everything out so we can demo the building and put in temp power and put up the load list. We'll show you the architectural drawings and you figure that out, and have Grandpa Stoll put that into the city and Con Ed, and start working on the service while we're demoing and building walls, and you'll go to it. So I did. And within about 3 months, they were really nice apartments. And I don't know if any of you have seen this, but a lot of buildings in New York, back in the day, they used every square inch. Like in basements, they had the sidewalks made out of wrought iron with leaded glass, so they would be skylights up, the sidewalks would be skylights to the basement because they didn't have electricity. So I got this great apartment and you'd have a basement and then a sub-basement where half of it was above ground, the other half. And the sub-basement went, because this was a place where nuns were, they had a backyard that was an amazing garden. It's like my grandma's garden, magic garden. And 9th Street and Avenue B, I was right on the corner of that, so I had windows looking at the sidewalks. I was like seeing people's kneecaps walk by. So it was really a great life. So at 14, I had my own apartment. And my sister had graduated college from a very prestigious college, and she could only get a job as a secretary in Wall Street. And she had a college degree in psychology, and she was getting paid $75 a week. And I didn't even graduate high school yet, and I was only 14, and I was getting paid $500 a week in 1964 or 5, right? And so I had this, it was what they call railroad flat, went all the way through, right? And it wasn't, the bathroom was like stuck on the wall, and, it was a little lumpy, but it was beautiful. And that garden was amazing. I loved that garden. And it had these French doors and a beautiful patio, and it went out to this beautiful garden. I was already growing stuff, And so, anyway, and in the middle of my thing, there was a spiral staircase. I went up the ceiling that was boarded up because the apartment above had been part of this, but they wanted to have a separate thing. So, and the apartment above had been the nuns' kitchen, which they didn't destroy. They kept it, and so it had a Garland stove and a hood and a fryolator and almost a commercial thing. And a big, gigantic refrigerator and very commercial, and big stainless steel sinks and a big stainless steel. This was a thing probably had 20, 30 nuns in it, and big dining room, and two rooms, and then a bathroom that was like amazing, and everything was a butcher white tile, the kitchen and the bathroom. And the bathroom had like this fire nozzle that you turned it on and it had that kind of pressure, and you could massage yourself on this jet and make it hot or cold. Anyway, that was the apartment above me. So I'm there, a few days or so, and then I hear this knock on the door, and I go, walk, and there's this kind of big guy, and he's got really black curly hair and really black curly beard and these really black glasses. And he goes, "Hi, I'm your upstairs neighbor. My name's Alan." "Oh, how are you doing, Alan?" "I'm Al." And he goes, "You probably noticed the stair in your middle of your apartment." "Oh, yeah." He goes, "Now I can tell you like to cook. I smell it all the time." "Hey, Lana, yo." And I said, "Well," I go, "Yeah." So he takes me up there, shows me the kitchen and the bathroom. The bathroom, it had these kind of gigantic bathtubs, and it's like unbelievable. And he had a washer dryer. It was like unbelievable. And he had these, two rooms up front, and the bathroom, and this his like almost a separate apartment over here. And one of those rooms was a beautiful library with loads of books. So he goes, "I know you'd love to cook in that kitchen, and I know you'd love to use that bathroom because I know that, you have to do a sponge bath down there. So why don't we rip the floor up and we become roommates? Because I love to garden. And if we have these two together, I have these Friday night potluck dinners. And it'll be great because I want the crowd to flow up and down, and that's a beautiful staircase. And I'd just been using it as shelves, and I said, "Great, sure." Well, that Alan was Allen Ginsberg. So Allen Ginsberg for that summer and the next year, until I came back that next summer, and I was doing something else. And I had that place and another place. And he goes, can I take over your apartment down below? And if you ever need a place, the guest bedroom's yours. I said, "Sure, Alan, no problem." He goes, "Just remember, this is still your place, but I want, I know you come and go a lot and you don't really pay rent that much. And it's only because the landlord, owes you for you being his electrician. But one day that might stop, and I want to keep this place. I want to get at least for both of those in mind." And I said, "Alan, not a problem." So from that point on, Allen Ginsberg was my good friend, until he died. Now, we didn't see each other all the time because our worlds kind of split at a certain point, but pretty much. And then I had a lot of friends who were his friends, and, like the people from the Living Theater and George of Theater for the New City. And so I was a theater guy, and Alan was the poet, right? And over on McDougal Street, I worked for, Mike Finelli, who is the godfather of that whole neck of the woods. So, and that's what life's about. It's about the experiences you have. And I got a ton of photos of all of that. I've been showing them to you over the time. Babo. Well, I've been talking now for almost 2 hours. And so I got to go run some errands before it starts raining. So I'm going to stick on just a little while to tell you all I love you so much. And I'm so happy that you showed up, Lana. I always am when you do. And go back and watch this at your leisure. And I'll try my best to do another live show tomorrow. Start around 11-ish, 11:30 my time. And so, Anna, have you gone on to xratted.blogspot.com? Have you checked that out? And have you sent me any? I don't always keep up with. Oh, Bob, You are. That's your opinion on Andrew Young. Now, remind me who Andrew Young is, and I'll give you my opinion. You're talking about the politician of the 70s, 80s. Oh, Yang. Oh, the guy who's running for president. Well, he's like, no one is up on that. 20 people started out, and now it's 10. Well, there's a person like Kelsey Gabbard. Is the only one I would vote for, and she met all the prerequisites the DNC wanted. And she was the only, she was on two of those things, and she buried Kamala Harris. You know, just whacked her, and she buried the other lady from Massachusetts, and she made other comments about other folks who shouldn't have been there. And then she didn't, and she looked the part. She was the part. She's a Army major, and she was ran a hospital in Mosul where everybody was getting shot up, and then she had to take over the military police because nobody was protecting the hospital. And now that's the lady, and she's saying we need to get rid of the military-industrial complex. We have to, she's the only one who's talking righteousness, and that's why she's not there. But she's still running for president, and she's still going up on the polls, and she's still making more money. She's just not there on the stage because she'd eat everyone alive. So go look up her, Kelsey Gabbard. Go to Jimmy Dore, and he really likes her. So he covers, she's the only person, the media doesn't cover, she doesn't exist in the media, right? Yes. D, everybody, this is, can jump in and come from any direction, and it's okay, and so, we just have to navigate, right? Just navigate. Anyway, so that's Yang is a guy who wants to give everyone $1,000. Hey, I'd love $1,000, and he would, this has been tried before, and it kind of works. It's better than giving $1 trillion to a handful of already really wealthy people. So, the nerd with the V could be, same picture. Yep, could be. And if it is, the thing about the nerd with a V is that can't be a person. I mean, it can't be a female because no female would say that, So, that was your previous moniker. Well, you're being a little more civil, and that's good. And Lana, we all have our hard edge, and so if Dee wants to become, part of the cadre and wants to be, open itself to being part of the chorus and appreciate each other, and Dee, that's what you have to do. You can't be the only voice. Just like, look, you just did 3 things in a. Okay, so that's what this is about. So okay, 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 56 seconds. I think I'm gonna go. Like I said, I want to get out there before it starts raining. So good, and I love you for it, Dee. So again. Anybody wants to get a hold of me personally, there's the dude awake 42 at Gmail. I'd love to hear from you all personally. That way we could talk more about personal things. Again, I'd love it if everyone went to my xratted.blogspot. Um, and I will try and do another live chat tomorrow, starting around 11:30 my time. Yes, energetically, I feel Dee and Lana can be the best of friends. You know, we might be even living in the same neighborhood. You know, because that Nordic area kind of builds strong women. Uh, okay, guys, let's see. I drink some more of my tea. Got my keys. Got my this. Got my that. My phone is all charged up. I'm going to turn it off so I don't waste it just being in the package. Boop, 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 boop. Same earth. Okay. Well, everyone, keep up the conversation even when I'm not here. And like I said, tomorrow I'll try and do another live chat. You know, if it's not raining hard, if it's a pretty day, if I still have a few dollars. Right? I love you guys. I'll catch you on a flip flop. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, you got to turn this off again, guys. Boop, boop, boop. Babo. I love that Babo. Uh, have a great day, fish. You too. And I'll tell you, Dee, we're all part of the cadre. We all are the same family. We're all our relations. And so say we all that we serve love's co-creation in every day and every way. Hope. And that's like a home. Okay? Getting there. We got you. Okay, babes. Yeah, hit me with some more of those phones. Oh, you're in Alaska. Oh, you're in America. Send me your phone number at anybody in the USA that I can call. My phone number close to USA is you know, get a hold of me at dudeawake42 at gmail. Yep. My heart is out to you all. Okay. Where is that? And there it is. There it is. There it is. There we go.